What's up, my friends, and welcome into another edition of the Run It Back podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and thanks for your patience over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, I should say. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been on. Just a million different things have happened over the last 2 weeks or so. All-Star break, LeBron James signs with the Sixers, work between this and other things have gotten in the way. We've had a million different things happen. So
Are you still stuck in Orlando?
I am not. Thankfully,
Okay,
I finally made
sure.
it home. That was another big one. Was I was supposed to be in Orlando for about 3 days, where I was like, oh, I'll pre-record some of my other stuff, and then I'll do 1 or 2 videos in the hotel. And I was supposed to be in Orlando for 3 days. It turned out to be in Orlando for over 5 because of flight deterrence, and it was just an absolute disaster. But we are back, and I guess right at the right time, Frank, because this is our last episode before the 2026 MLB trade deadline.
It's coming fast. So, it seemed like it was something far, far, far away, and yet all of a sudden, here we are.
So the Phillies obviously have hit a little bit of a skid, probably at the wrong time for a lot of people's patience. I've seen a lot of irritated Phillies fans on social media, and I'll be honest with you. I think it's fair for them to be irritated. It's fair for them to say that they are frustrated at the way that the team has played out of the All-Star break. They've lost 8 out of 11. They've lost every series they have played since the All-Star break. And they are currently playing at the time of this recording with an opportunity to hopefully not get swept out by the Marlins, who heading into this series had lost double-digit games in a row themselves. So I get why a lot of Phillies fans at this moment, based on how the team is currently playing, based on how the team is constructed, based on the understanding that this is a flawed baseball team, all of those things put into one, when the trade deadline is less than a week away, Phillies fans are frustrated right now.
Yeah, I'll say. It just seems like everything bad is happening at once. I mean, Zach Wheeler has his worst start, and as he apparently slipped into, do they have that lettuce bug, whatever they call that thing, the parasite that, I don't know. But Zach Wheeler wasn't himself, ends up feeling sick later in the day. And then you have the Phillies come back, and then Juan Duran has his worst start. His worst inning of the year. So it's just one thing after the other. Then Kyle Schwarber's out with the illness, so they just can't catch a break. It seems. I think they're exhausted. I kind of said that last time we met, that It seemed like the All-Star break, maybe that would be their chance to reset, but they didn't really get a reset. And so I just see a team which is just completely exhausted. And when that happens, all the holes that you were able to work around before, all of a sudden you can't, right? You could deal with, Zach Wheeler having a bad start most of the time, right? Because the others are around to pick him up. But you're at the point now where you're almost going into every game like, well, Zach Wheeler has to be perfect. You get to Aaron Nola. Well, Aaron Nola needs to be perfect. Well, he was almost. He gave up one solo shot. Otherwise, what else? I mean, even if he did, what else could you ask for from who he is right now, right? So, but just and the Phillies don't score. Those games against the Yankees, Jesus Luzardo pitches his butt off, loses 1-0. This is just a whole lot of bad stuff happening at once, which just makes it feel exponentially worse.
Yeah, they've lost 1-0 twice in the last 6 days or 5 days or something along those lines. As we said, they've lost 8 of their last 11. The offense at times looks fairly incompetent, and we've talked about this plenty. It is a baseball team that is good and flawed, and that's something that has kind of plagued them the entire year. But the reality when you look at this team is they have been carried on the strength of 3 elite starting pitchers, of 3 guys at the top of their lineup that have heavily been their producers. Brandon Marsh has seriously cooled off in the last month or so. Bryce Harper had maybe his worst month of the year in the month of July so far. It's just been a really rough go for him. Kyle Schwarber has been sick the last couple of days with the GI thing. And when those 3 guys don't contribute at the top of the lineup, oftentimes you're going to see the rest of the lineup kind of follow suit. And it's why that they've lost twice in the last several days, 1-0. And even in the game that they did produce runs, Alec Boehm drove in a handful of runs. I think JT Realmuto's at-bats are starting to get a little bit better over the last 2 weeks or so. But you see, even in the games that they do produce runs, it almost feels like Bizarro World, where they have a night where they produce runs, and the 2 guys that you expect to pitch well are the 2 guys that don't pitch well in Wheeler and Duran. So everything that could possibly be going wrong for this organization at this very moment is going wrong. They still sit in a playoff spot. It's far less comfortable than it was at the end of the All-Star break, where they were 11 games over 500 instead of the 5 that they, or the 4 that they currently are.
Mm.
It's not nearly as, and I wouldn't have even called that comfortable because of the way that they were winning, but at least it was comfortable in sheer wins and losses. There's a lot of things that make you feel a little bit uneasy as you head into the trade deadline, which is now 5 days away, 6 days away.
Yeah. So Monday the 3rd, it's late this year, August 3rd, just because I think for good reasons they didn't want people playing while this went on. That's pretty smart. We won't have the hug watches going on this year like we normally see, right? But by the way, Byron Buxton, there was a hug watch yesterday, but it turned out he was hurt.
Yep.
So a lot of these players that might have been traded getting hurt in these last few days. And by the way, Curtis Mead, who would have been really nice on the Phillies, traded by the Nationals to the Boston Red Sox. They gave up a really nice pitcher for him.
Yeah.
My friend Tyler Poitras of Phillies Tailgate actually said, hey, how about this? He's going to be traded for 2 different aces because, of course, Curtis Mead was traded for Christopher Sanchez. But he breaks his hand in his first game. So this is just a wacky year. So can the Phillies actually do something at this deadline to make this meaningful?
Yeah, I think that's probably the question that everybody is waiting with bated breath on, between fans who have kind of said, this is a team that needs addressing, whether it be a right-handed power bat or some bullpen help or a back end of the rotation starter. Whatever order you put those 3 in, there's clearly needs to be addressed. Or you have what happened in the last, 12 hours or so, with Bryce Harper coming out and basically saying, we need help. It's pretty clear that we need help. And this kind of back and forth between Dave Dombrowski and Bryce Harper seems to be a never-ending saga of, taking a shot at you, taking a shot at you, taking a shot at you, taking a shot at you. And this is the most recent part of it, where Bryce Harper's right. This team needs help. And Dave Dombrowski cannot be the GM this year that says we like our club. He's used that phrase, we like our club, several times over the last 24 months. He did it at the beginning of the season when they added Adolis Garcia and they added some fringe pieces, and he said, we like our club. And the needs were there then, and the needs are there now. Bryce Harper is correct in saying that this baseball team is insufficient at making a legitimate playoff run as they're currently constructed.
Yeah, and by the way, the way he did it, very passive aggressive,
Right?
Right? I mean, oh, by the way, reporters, I brought my outfielder's glove in case Dave Dombrowski makes a nice trade that forces me to the outfield. It's like, geez, and he acknowledged he didn't have that conversation with him, but it's kind of bad that Bryce Harper, their star, has to go through the media to send a message to management. And I think that's a little bit concerning, because it shows that there's not that open line of communication, which I think you would have with your superstar who signed a 13-year deal. But beyond that, though, just the idea that the players seem to be unsettled and have to go public with a cry for help almost. I think that is a little bit concerning, because if he's thinking that in the clubhouse, he can't be the only one who's thinking that in the clubhouse.
And then when you turn your attention externally to the rest of the league and you look at how some of the good teams are constructed, a lot of these good teams are looking for the same thing that the Phillies are looking for. They're looking for a right-handed bat to give depth to their lineup. I always say this, every playoff team should be looking to acquire bullpen help, because your bullpen can never be good enough, right? You always want to get another big-time arm. A lot of teams are looking for starting pitching depth. And it's not just your typical Yankees, Dodgers. I think the Rays are going to go big this year. I think your division rival, the Braves, might go big this year in starting pitching. Heck, I even think the Chicago White Sox might be in on some, playoff type of moves this year, which is not something that we expected. There are a lot of teams in playoff positions right now that are gunning for the same type of talent that you are. And when you look at the other teams, the good teams at the top of the standings, a lot of them have something that the Phillies don't have, which is a better farm system to make these type of moves, right? You think about the Dodgers. They have a Jesus De Paula right at the top of their farm system. The Brewers have a Jesus Mate at the top of their farm system. The Rays have an incredibly deep system. They're a top 5 by most metrics types of farm system. The Phillies, Baseball America, I believe, ranked them, 29th, I believe it was, earlier this week or a couple weeks ago. It's not a deep farm system. The players that you would like to hold on to are, the type of prospects that, you may end up having to move if you want to acquire upper echelon talent. The Phillies find themselves in a disadvantaged spot heading into the trade deadline because of their depleted farm system.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit on that. Now, last year, all right, when you consider who got traded, only 3 top 100 prospects were traded last deadline. Do you know who they are?
Last trade deadline, it was Leo DeVries.
That's the biggest prospect of
Right.
all that now the Padres are regretting, I think, by maybe trading Mason Miller now.
There wasn't another top 100 in that trade, was there?
Nope.
Okay. Were they considering Eduardo Taiit at the time top 100?
He was.
Okay, so Tait's the other one.
There's one more.
Third one. I don't know the third one.
Mick Abel.
Really? They were still considering Abel in that group.
He was number 92 when he got moved. So when you consider all the moves that were made last deadline, just those 3 were the only top 100 prospects moved at the deadline, and 2 of them were from the Phillies. Sure. And the fact that you didn't remember Mick Abel snuck his way back onto that list in the 90s, I mean, kind of shows you that, the Phillies were really front and center, and they didn't give up that much. Now, I think that they gave up. I will say, I said that they didn't give up that much. I mean, in terms of prospect, Taiit is a real prospect. Okay, let's be clear about that. They were willing to do it because they got Duran back, right? And Duran had multiple years of control after last year. If you're looking for rentals, nobody really gave up a top 100 prospect for a rental, because besides the Phillies getting Duran, it was the Padres getting Mason Miller. Beyond that, no other team traded a top 100 prospect. So I think that is an advantage to the Phillies, because you know what? If you don't, now the Phillies actually have 3 right now on the top 100 list. One of them is Mick Abel, who you just mentioned, right? And Aiden Miller is still on there, although I don't know that a team would trade for him because they don't necessarily know what they have. I mean, and if you're the Phillies, you probably are actually going to hurt yourself by making that move. But then, but beyond that, I mean, it's just Francisco Renteria, who's 6 years away from the major league. I mean, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but there's simply that's all the Phillies have to offer anyway. But I don't know that the types of trades that they would make for a rental require any of them.
Okay, so you're probably right. Let me kind of rephrase that, because I was using that maybe as an extreme example, right? Like DePaul is not getting traded, I don't believe. Who else did I mention along? Oh, Made's not getting traded. I don't think Nathan Flewelling's getting traded. Because you're right. Like, I don't, unless it's Mason Miller, unless it's CJ Abrams, who, like, I have been on this like tirade the last couple of days of like, what are the Nationals even, like, I wouldn't even entertain it if I were the Nationals. But unless it's CJ Abrams, unless it's Mason Miller type of player, you're probably right. Those guys aren't getting moved. Maybe the way that I should look at it is when those other teams' top of their farm systems start with those guys, the guys next tier down kind of are on a playing field of where your bottom of your top, like maybe not Gage Wood, but like the rest of your top tier prospects start, right? So like other teams' 5s and 6s might be your 2, 3, 4. Other teams' 10 might be your 5, right? And so maybe that's where I'm trying to get at this year. You're probably right in the sense that like those types of guys aren't getting moved unless it's a Juan Soto type of trade. But I think that when you're at a disadvantage of like the farm system is so below par to everybody else's or most of these other competitors, that I do think that puts you at a disadvantage because you have to offer more numerically than what the other teams may have to.
Yeah, I'm going down the prospect list. I mean, yeah, of course, Gage Wood is probably someone they don't want to trade. Right. I wouldn't rule it out if it's a controllable player, by the way. I wouldn't rule anybody out, to be honest with you.
Oh, I have no untradables this offseason.
Yeah.
This trade deadline.
I agree with you there. But, if you're getting to the lower list of Phillies prospects, Ramon Marquez, the pitcher, infielder Aran Escobar, outfielder Dante Nori, who might have some some street cred from the World Baseball
Right.
Classic. That might interest somebody, even though he's hurt. Shortstop Brian Rincon is getting some attention as of late. I feel
Powers
like,
really come on.
yeah, and here's another point too. Now Andrew Painter technically graduated from the prospect list. Would you call him a prospect just because he came up and had some bad starts?
So I'm a big believer in like players should be taken off the prospect list sooner than that they are. So my answer would be no, because he has a handful of MLB starts under his belt. But like, would they trade Painter if a team came calling? Potentially, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to be brought into this equation too. So that's separate from the idea of the farm
Right.
system. I mean, I think with Painter, you have somebody who still has his velocity. So that's a good sign, right? The command, maybe he can work on that. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm taking that for granted, but you have hope. It's not like he's throwing 88 miles an hour all of
Right.
a sudden, right? So I feel like some team that has the ability to be patient might see that as a very good asset. I think back way, way, way back to 2007. The Phillies had going into that year, they wanted to compete. They had the pieces that started to come together, it seemed. But then you had Gavin Floyd, who was a first round pick, top prospect, kind of flailing along. The Phillies ultimately moved him for Freddie Garcia. Now Garcia didn't work out, right? Kyle Kendrick actually came up and pitched admirably instead. But if they were just kind of playing along, and waiting for him to get it together, which he absolutely did, and actually had arguably a very fine major league career, Gavin Floyd did. But the Phillies wanted to win, right? So they wanted to get to the playoffs in 07. They wanted to win the World Series in 08. They might not have had that ability to be patient with Floyd. A team that acquires a Painter that has the patience, they could see him as a real asset. So,
Sure.
so if they I would really see if Phillies would match up with somebody there. I would not hesitate to trade Andrew Painter, particularly if you're getting value back that's going to last for more than 1 year.
So I guess when it comes to like last year, I said this year I don't have anybody that I would really pro clutch for. Last year I had two guys. Last year it was Painter for obvious reasons, and the other one was Eduardo Tait, who they ended up moving and acquired Joan Duran. It was a good trade. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it wasn't, just because I liked Eduardo Tait. I believed in positional value. I thought the bat was real, but he was several years away from being a major league contributor. Going and getting Joan Duran was the right move. But last year I had two guys. This year there's nobody that I would put in that like truly untouchable list. I wonder if like the closest guy to that mark actually is Francisco Renteria, just based on the surrounding situation of they paid $4 million to acquire him. He's already their number 3 prospect, I believe, in their entire system. Now, again, could be a product of the fact that the system is not very good, but he's already a top 5 prospect. He's had it's rookie ball, but he's had some extremely competitive success. Wouldn't be surprised if he's up to Clearwater and Jersey Shore very quickly next year. Like I think he'll make those moves pretty quickly at 18. But I wonder if he's the closest to quote unquote untouchable prospect just because of the surrounding situation of what they did to acquire him.
Yeah, though, I think back, the Phillies once paid big money for a prospect in the international scene, and Jalen Ortiz was the untouchable big money prospect. What's he doing now? I don't even know, right? So he's so far away. If you're trading him now, another team might not get anything out of him in the major leagues for 4 years, 5
Sure.
years. If you win a World Series, are you really worried about him making it later on?
No, absolutely not. I think that if you win, if the end target is win a World Series, then sure, absolutely not. You're moving any player that you need to make that happen. I think I'm playing under the pretense that I would not hold on to any prospect for the right particular player. I think I'm trying to view it from their lens of they're not, to me at this current moment, they're not a World Series team. Quite frankly, I don't know if they win a playoff series. That's how down I am on this team at this current moment, which really kind of sucks to look at it that way. But I don't know if they're going to move a guy that they heavily invested in based on the way that the current roster is constructed. Does that mean that they wouldn't move him? Absolutely not. But I do think that there is a very real chance of all of their prospects. It's Gage Wood and it's Francisco Renteria are the two guys that they would be like, we'd really love to keep these two guys.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I would push back only in one way, and that's that you talk about a heavy investment. This roster was a heavy investment, and it's not just the dollars that they're committed to this year. It's the 13 years that went to Bryce Harper, the 11 that went to Trey Turner. I mean, the 5 to Kyle Schwarber at his age, 3 to JT Realmuto, all the money they spent on Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez's big extension, Luzardo's extension. I mean, I can keep going on and on and on, right? So you're going to say that you're going to give up the chance to win with all that investment just because you're worried about somebody being good later, even though you're a team that can spend your way out of it, right? I mean, I think that's something to think about here because the Phillies are not like other teams. They can spend money if they need to. When that failed rebuild happened after that began in 2015, they got them absolutely nowhere. The best thing that happened was having somebody they could include in the Real Muto trade. The Phillies essentially spent their way out of it, and
For sure.
to be this. So I think they can do it again. So I would not even go as far as to say semi untouchable on any of them. Look, I think Gage Wood is the one that could help them the soonest. It'd be cool to avoid him and have him in your back pocket if if a sudden need in September and you're just grasping for arms. That'd be nice to have, but be nice to have some more certainty here. Be nice to have some more consistency at the plate from somebody. And because this home run or bust team, they feel great when they're hitting lots of home runs, but when Schwarber has a little lull like he's had and Harper had a lull like he had, you're not scoring anything.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the entirety of the prospect group, I would say that there are probably like 5 guys that I would really like to try to develop and hold on to. We mentioned Renteria, we mentioned Wood. I've been pretty big and pretty vocal about Ilario Farabus this season. He just got promoted to Jersey Shore, but again, another guy, 20 years old, pretty long way away from being a major league caliber player. Also question marks about does he stick as a catcher as he goes up through. They like him. I don't know if they love him as a catcher. Kind of a similar situation to Tai, where the bat looks real and the defense is still like, we'll see what happens. I like Cade Obermueller a lot, the lefty that they drafted out of Iowa in the second round last year. But again, and then like one of the guys that's starting to have a nice little run, but he's 22 and just got promoted to high A was Juan Villavicencio. But like it's a group of guys that it's like, wow, they're nice, and I think they could be major league players. And of course, you still have to consider the Aiden Millers, the Aaron Escobars. Like, are they still major league type players down the line? They're your big time prospects. But I don't disagree with you that if you have an opportunity to get better, you should take it.
And the other thing too, we don't know what's happening next year.
Yeah,
we don't know what the collective bargaining agreement is going to look like if they ever come to one. What will happen to the things that you're already committed to? I mean, I don't think they're going to force teams to get players off their roster. You think back to the way NBA's done it over the years. There might be some mid-level exception type, even if there is a cat. So the Phillies probably are poised to just do what they can right now, and see what they can see. They got to make it happen. Next year might not happen. I'm already like looking at spring training for some various things because I was hoping to take some students there as like a travel study.
Sure.
For sports media. I don't know if there's going to be a major league spring training if I go ahead with this, right? So it's going to be a really tough year next year. That's another reason to make sure that something happens now. And by the way, speaking of all the money, that's another advantage to the Phillies in trade talk. They can take money back if they need to. Remember a couple of years ago the trade with that basically it was the end of Gene Segura's career. Do you remember what that trade was?
When they moved Segura, or when
not
they
when the
acquired
Phillies
Segura?
moved him, but the end of his career was when the Marlins traded him to the Guardians.
Yes.
What did the Guardians do? Well, they said,
I feel like they just cut him.
Yeah, they said, okay, well, we were just taking your money. We're going to cut you. So,
and you're right. Like, especially on expiring deals, guys that are on the either 1 year deals or the final year of their deals. Like, if they're going to go for it, then like a Kevin Gausman would make sense, right? Like on the final year of a 5-year deal, hasn't been as good as he's been in years past, but the metrics tell you he's still pitching well. Basically a strikeout parading type of guy. You know he's going to go out there every fifth day and give you 6, which would be a massive bolster to the back end of this rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're going to do it, like that's the type of guy that you would want to center in on. I know a lot of people are in on. I'm not as big of a Taylor Ward guy as others are, but for a team with the worst OBP in baseball, Taylor Ward certainly helps that. With one of the highest OBPs in baseball, and his model has basically become like, don't swing the bat until you get that pitch you want. But his OBP's been incredible. I know his power's down a little bit in Baltimore, but like if that's the type of guy that you think could help your offense, then you certainly should do it. Like I don't want to be like misconstrued and trying to say like the Phillies shouldn't go by, because they certainly should. I'm thinking about it like I'm wondering, trying to get in their heads how much they're valuing how good their team currently is.
Yeah, it's the league's worst OBP. That's scary.
Yeah.
And they didn't used to be this way. So I assume some of that is the natural aging of the stars that you have. So you got to make this count while you got something there, because guess what? It's not getting better after this.
So we've talked about kind of the natural order of things in terms of needs for this team for a while, and it's fluctuated. It's been right-handed bat, it's been starter, it's been bullpen, it's been up and down. There's been some consistencies, but the kind of the natural order of needs has kind of changed throughout the year. With less than a week to go until the trade deadline, where are you in that need, and what's the key need for you heading into the next couple of days?
They have 3 major needs. They need a bat, if not 2. I would collect as much as you can. Bat, starter. You absolutely need a starter, and you also need 2 relievers. I mean, this is a big shopping list. You need a right-handed reliever, because Brad Keller, their most expensive reliever on the roster, is not going to help them this year, and probably not next, or at least not most of next. And then the lefty that disappeared in Tanner Banks and his health. He's on the 60-day IL now. I think we've seen the last of him for the year.
Yep.
Alvarado still inconsistent, although he's looked okay the last couple times. You need another lefty badly. I mean, Tim Mayza has been decent, but he's not that type of lefty, right? He's sort of your like middle of the game, or if you need someone to throw a couple innings at the beginning against the Yankees,
I think he's done a nice job as the opener.
Yeah. I'm very happy with Tim Mayza, but that does not mean he's a back end lefty, right, that like you're looking for. So,
and neither is Backus.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I'm holding my breath every time he pitches. Right. So they need a lefty. They need a righty. Have the pen. They need a starter, and they need a bat. And look, I would just collect as many pieces as you can. Maybe there's a couple teams out there where you can get two things at once. By the way, the Red Sox are not selling, so forget all about Aroldis Chapman or Duran or I know I like Abreu a lot, but of course so do they. So by the way, just to take a quick aside, this Red Sox winning all those games in a row and all of a sudden back in contention in a wild card spot, I really wonder how many teams are going to actually be willing to make trades. I mean, as of yesterday, the Twins said they were not selling, they were buying.
Yeah.
And they were a couple games out of the wild card, but then again, Byron Buxton got hurt, so maybe that'll change their mind. Like, this is going to be a very last minute deadline, which makes you nervous if you need to make multiple trades, because a lot of teams are right in the bubble. Aside, I can count on one hand the teams we know are sellers, right? So the Colorado Rockies,
yep.
The Oakland Athletics fell into that. They were not considered that long ago. Now that Shea Langoliers is hurt, I think that's a sign it's time for them to do some selling, right?
The Royals,
the Angels,
Orioles probably too.
What's that? The Orioles? You say?
Orioles.
Yeah, probably. But if you look at the standings, they're not even that far out. So
I think the Orioles are going to be selective sellers, like in the sense of your Taylor Wards, Andrew Kittredge, Trevor Rogers, anybody, again, kind of like Toronto, anybody on an expiring or 1-year deal, probably gone. Their core, even though it's been extremely underwhelming, probably not this year. I think that's been a disaster of a rebuild. Like, it's not, they've made the playoffs like a couple of times, and I know they have had a handful of injuries, but like they went for it to go acquire Corbin Burns, and it got them nothing. And this group of young guys that, were supposed to a lot of high, first round picks, a couple of number 1 overall picks, a lot of guys that were supposed to kind of balance this thing out between Rushman and Holiday and Cowser and, the whole group. Obviously, Gunnar Henderson is still a very, very good player, but the whole group's been wildly underwhelming. I think that team probably is selective sellers on any and all veterans that they have on their roster.
Now the question is, with all these teams thinking they're in it, though, then that's more competition to get those guys.
Absolutely.
So, and especially if a lot of teams making a last minute, just like the Twins, like I said, the Buxton injury might change their mind, but I don't know. I mean, are they going to that? By the way, I assume the Nationals are sellers because they traded Mead. But there's going to be a lot of teams on the bubble that are going to.
And then the report comes out today that like the Marlins are listening on Lopez and Edwards and Hicks and Hernandez, and like that's your core. That's your good young core. That like this is a Marlins team that couple starting pitchers, a legit back end bullpen guy, like they could be a pretty competitive team, but they refuse to spend any money. And now you're talking about, and again, there's a difference between shopping and listening to phone calls, but like there should not be a world where you're listening to phone calls on Otto Lopez and Xavier Edwards.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And Alberto Hernandez, I would take in a heartbeat too, by the way.
For sure.
I really like him. And he's a righty. So I don't know if they'll make another trade with the Phillies, but the Phillies always seem to be left out of the fire sales. They finally got one in Real Muto, right? But yeah, but put Hernandez in left field with that right-handed bat, I would be thrilled. So I don't know. I don't get what Miami's doing. But there's always teams I don't get. By the way, the Angels I think might make some good decisions this time because their GM got fired and John Mozeliak is the one that's filling in now and trying to right the ship. So I think they have plenty to trade. Reed Detmers might be a rotation arm that the Phillies might be able to pick up.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a little tricky situation.
Do you think they trade Neto?
You know what? I that's a really, really tough one. I mean, overall, I would say two things. One, Trey Turner needs to get off a shortstop. But two, I don't like Trey Turner getting off a shortstop in the middle of a season and going into the stretch run. If they picked up Neto, I would definitely say they would really have one of Harper or Turner have to go to the outfield to make it work.
I would think without question. I guess really more curious. Like he's not on. He's still got some years. I believe he's got a couple years left on his contract.
Yep.
I'm curious if the Angels want to actually move him. Like Detmers makes sense. I know he's young and youngish, and Soriano would make sense as well. I'd be curious if Neto is a name that they go, yeah, we're not quite ready to move him just yet.
The Angels ownership has made so many bad decisions in recent years. And you know what? I really hope for their sake that John Mozeliak, who is very accomplished and was responsible for all the Cardinals' success for many, many years, if you're not familiar with the name, he's a winner. And if he's allowed to do what he needs to do to rebuild, I could see him trading a Neto because you know what? They're not going to be ready for a few years anyway. Let's load up. If I'm him, I would pull the inventory. I mean, I don't know if he's hoping to audition for the job or if he's just filling in for a while. I'm not sure where he fits in there, but you gotta do something over there. And in fact, that they should be trying to trade Mike Trout. They should be trying to and by the way, that's the rumor that never goes away. I don't love the Phillies trading for him. Other than this particular year, he might help, but.
Yeah, the next 5 years of $35 million doesn't feel great.
Unless they eat most of that money and you're paying them 15, but I don't know.
So I have a handful of players here. Curious, you think if they get moved and if there's a spot in particular that makes sense for you. So let's start with the big one. Free agent next year is going to get $200 million at least, even. And that's at the low end, probably closer to like 300 million. Does Tarek Skubal get moved?
Yes, because it's the right baseball move for the Tigers.
I think the Braves are going to be very much in play. for Skubal. I
Yeah.
think Milwaukee is going to be in play for Skubal. And then, of course, the Dodgers are always in play in those types of moves.
I've said this before in the air. I think Atlanta's the fit for Skubal. I mean, they've got the talent to trade. They've got the need, because they for a while. By the way, if you didn't notice, the Braves are kind of settling things down, but
Yep.
for a while they couldn't figure out who was taking the ball every fifth day,
They're getting
like
healthy
the
at the rate.
Phillies.
Smith Shawver should be
Yep,
back soon.
yep. So I mean, the Phillies kind of missed their chance, I think, to reclaim the National League East. And if they get Skubal, watch out.
Yeah. So I also believe that Skubal gets moved because again, I think you said it best. It's the right baseball move because I don't think he resigns in Detroit. It would be malpractice to if you're not going to trade him, you have to be darn sure you have the upper leg on re-signing him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't think that any team that acquires him is going to get a chance to re-sign him early. This is not the Roy Halladay trade where he signs an extension before he
Right.
gets there. This is a Scott Boras client. This is going to be a member named Kevin Millwood, and I feel like he's the same type of player that's going to squeeze every dollar, even though he's playing with a random team every other year. He's going to squeeze every single dollar, and whether he's going to the Rangers, to the Rockies, to the fill in the blank, I can't remember all the teams Kevin Millwood played for. He maximized his dollars, so I feel like this is another one of those situations.
Does Hunter Goodman get traded?
That's a tough one. Um, Here's a better question: is he going to stick it at behind the plate?
Good question. I would say fair chance.
I mean, I think if he does, the Yankees will be all over it.
Yeah, the Yankees make a ton of sense. I think there's a couple of teams in the AL East that are looking for catchers. Yankees obviously are the big one. The Rays certainly could use some help there in between now and when Llewellyn eventually makes his debut a few years from now. But I think I would say Goodman does not get traded this year. But I would say look for him to maybe get traded in the next 12 months, assuming there is baseball.
It's a shame to say it that way, but
all right, couple twins, Joe Ryan and Ryan Jeffers.
I think they stay with the Twins. I think the Twins are going to try to hang in there, even though I don't think that's the best idea.
Yeah, I think if only one were to be traded, I could see them moving Jeffers. I think Joe Ryan is not going anywhere at this moment.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
You mentioned the Nationals being sellers. I mentioned they should not trade C.J. Abrams. Do you think C.J. Abrams gets traded?
I think so. I think the Nationals maybe because of his defense. I don't know that they see him as a long-term answer at short. So they're gonna cut their losses now, and well, not even losses. I think they can get plenty for him.
Yeah,
but I think when you consider the other prospects on their not even prospects, excuse me, the other stars on the roster, I think they're still fine, and I think that they can get a better shortstop out of this later, rather than they could change his position, yes, but I think that they can get something back in return, and they might move him.
So if he does get moved, is he the most expensive trade of the trade deadline?
No, I think
because I don't think Skubal's going to cost as much as people think being a rental. And as you brought up, feels like no movement on a extension right away.
Yeah, I think you're onto something because Skubal's being paid very handsomely this year, and if the Tigers can unload the rest of that money, which even at the deadline, still probably $10 million or more, right? I mean, he was making 32, and you'll get him for 2 months out of the 6, right? So you're looking at a pretty big penny for whoever acquires him. Now that's unless the Tigers get more prospects to eat the money. I mean, I think that would be the one exception. But yeah, I think you're onto something there.
All right, so that was just a couple of guys I was thinking about, bigger named guys. Any other big names that you are expecting to be moved?
No, not really. I think that's part of the problem here. I mean, this is there are not enough teams that we know are sellers. And I mean, unless somebody very creatively makes some deals that surprise us, which could happen. I mean, there were some whispers that maybe now's the time Trout will listen to the potential trade. Of course, be picky about it, but I don't know how you get a deal done with that contract with any team.
Sure.
So I think that's That's going to be tough. But I mean, I will say this: the Marlins, if they are going to trade some of these players, they might be the big shockers.
Yeah. One other name that like I've kind of seen some whispers of. I think I would be stunned if they do move him. Be curious to see what the Reds do with Ellie De La Cruz.
Hmm.
Because I think it's a wrong move to trade him, but I do think that there may be some semblance. Like if the Red Sox came and offered Franklin Arias and maybe a couple of other big time prospects, I would be curious if the Reds would listen.
The Phillies have anything that they could do to get him?
They could give the Reds half of the Liberty Bell, all of the prospects in Single A, and yeah, no.
Yeah, but by the way, I don't know if you saw my tweet the other day of somebody posting. I now have to pull it up and find it, but you're seeing all these really crazy trade proposals online
Trade
right
deadline
now.
time just gets stupid, man.
Yeah, I know. And then I basically retweeted with a comment. One of the more reasonable proposed trades I've seen on this platform. Phillies receive Tarek Skubal. Tigers receive Otto Kemp, Alec Boehm, 2023 Nick Castellanos, autograph picture of the Philly fanatic Shane Gillis. But yeah, this is the time for that. But yeah. But anyway, if De La Cruz can come, I think you just huddle with the rest of the team. You'd be like, all right, we got to fit him in.
I think the Reds
how do
are
we
in
do
an the Reds are in an interesting spot because they have some really good players and the results just haven't found the results between Chase Burns is in the Cy Young conversation. I know
Mhm.
Hunter Green's been hurt, for most of the year, but I still am a big Hunter Green fan. I still like Andrew Abbott. He's not the guy that he maybe was last year. He was amazing last year. But Ellie, Spencer Steer, like it's a good group of players. I could see them maybe potentially moving Tyler Stevenson.
Mm.
If a team is looking again, talking about the depth at catcher around the league is not particularly strong. I could
No,
see
it's
maybe
not.
Tyler Stevenson getting moved, but the Reds are always interesting because they made the playoffs last year on the strength of their pitching. You and I both at the beginning of the year said, yeah, that's the regression team waiting to happen. But there's a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, but gosh, if they move De La Cruz, I'm on the phone with them and trying not to hang
That's
up
waving
until
the
there's a
white
trade.
flag.
Yeah, yeah, big time.
All right. So last thing here before we kind of wrap things up for the trade deadline, look into your crystal ball, get your premonitions ready. This time, 5 days from now, or a little later, 5 days from now, the Phillies will have acquired who or what positions? I know we said there's what they need, but how many, who and what would they have acquired at this time about 5 days from now?
Well, whether we like them or not, I think all four things are going to be acquired. I think the Phillies are going to be
Really?
adding. Yeah, I think they're getting a
Okay.
starter. I think they're getting multiple relievers, and they're getting a bat. Are they going to be the ones people want? Are they going to be the ideal candidates for each of those? I don't know, but I think the Phillies know what they need, and yeah, I see them bringing in four pieces,
Okay.
if not more. If not more.
I think that they are going to end up with a Jake McCarthy type outfielder. And I think Brock Burke makes a lot of sense from the Reds, a lefty, and then a back end starter. So I do think they get three players, but I don't think any of them are the, like, as you said, like maybe people won't be super excited. I don't think any of them are the high impact, one player high impact that a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah, so there might be some disappointment from fans, but again, I don't know that there's any big names out there to acquire.
Yeah, because I think a lot of teams are looking for a lot of the same that the Phillies are. I mean, right-handed bats. You've used the word. There's like a dearth of right-handed bats for weeks now, and it's not just for the Phillies. It's around baseball. I do think that there's going to be a lot of teams looking for a right-handed outfielder, and there's not a lot of them available.
Hey, Brian De La Cruz is in the major leagues, so that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to get into before we wrap this thing up for the day?
Well, it could be an interesting week. That's all I'll say.
Certainly will. Next time we talk, we'll be post trade deadline. So next Wednesday, we'll be back at it for our next edition of the Run It Back podcast. We'll see where the Phillies fare. If any of the big name players across baseball do or don't get traded, we'll talk more about it next week. If you're listening on our audio-only platforms, please leave a 5-star review. If you're listening on YouTube and watching along with us, smash that like button and hit the subscribe button on the way out. For my podcast partner, Frank Klose, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week, post-trade deadline, right here on the Run It Back podcast. See you then.